Mysterio. They don't have anything to do with this. Let them go. Well, Jameson you can keep, but...
Enough!
Welcome back to another episode of Nerds on a Couch. A podcast where two nerds sit on a couch and talk about a bunch of nerdy things. This week we both saw the new Spider-Man film, Spider-Man Far From Home. So because this is the first time we've talked about Marvel movies or comic book movies in general on this channel, what are your thoughts on the MCU in general?
You know, I really like the MCU. I appreciate the tone, how it's, light and fun. They don't really take themselves too seriously like DC tends to do, and they really just have a great time. So these movies they're never going to win awards. It's not high art, but it is fun. It's fun watching some of your favorite comic books realized in a film. So I'm really enjoying this, the popularity that these movies have. I really love it. I'm super into comic book movies and watching my favorite superheroes. I think it's great. You?
I also really like these movies. But what's interesting is I was never really a huge comic book person. The only comic book person I actually watched was Spider-Man. But otherwise, I didn't really know too much about these characters. But I love these movies because at the end of the day, they're just really well-made movies.
Right.
And what I like is just the amount of diversity that they have in it. Like, you can have like an Iron Man movie, a Guardians of the Galaxy, but then they can actually do a really interesting, serious movie with Civil War. Like, I thought Civil War is one of my favorite movies just because that movie actually gets really dark at times and deals with some pretty interesting themes and ideas. And then you have like these big tentpole movies like Infinity War, which I think is probably a movie that's going to be a staple in this generation. Just how like Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back was such a huge moment for movies back then. I think Infinity War and Endgame are going to be these big movies that will be remembered. But it's crazy just like how smart these guys are at what they're doing, even to the effect that they had the balls to actually have like an endpoint to everything they've been building for the last 10 years. And because with these like American shows and like big movies, there's that corporate element that just like, let's just keep making the money. But I like that they went, you know what, no, we're gonna have our big finale and then we're going to start small again and like build up to more movies later.
Yeah, they just know how to do it right.
Exactly. Like they've been really clever, and I've been really enjoying what they did, and I was incredibly satisfied with Infinity War and Endgame. That was amazing.
Me too. I thought they did such a great job. There's really no criticism I have. I think they did a really great job tying everything together. There were great throwbacks to, earlier series. It wasn't really hard to follow along. And the really interesting thing is, although there are so many main characters, I felt like everybody got a really good amount of screen time because everybody's scenes were so like intricate to the story. So I thought even their pacing and their timing was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I have no idea how they managed to pace out that many characters in those movies, but it worked so well.
Right. I'm totally with you on that one.
So, when it comes to Spider-Man, what did you think of Spider-Man's previous solo movie in the MCU, Spider-Man Homecoming?
So, I really liked Spider-Man Homecoming. I really liked Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I really like his interpretation because I really feel... So, unlike the first modern-day entry of the Spider-Man series, with Tobey Maguire, I feel like we're really on the journey from the ground up with Tom Holland. Like, I really feel, he's that bumbling, super smart, out of place kid who suddenly finds himself with mega powers and trying to figure out, what to do with it and how to navigate the world, and yet still be this awkward teenager. So I really like Tom Holland's interpretation of Spider-Man, and Homecoming, I really liked too. I thought it dealt with a lot of issues that, we've all faced when we were back in high school, wanting to date the really cute, popular person of your dreams. Sans being, bitten by a radioactive spider and having, powers.
As we all do.
Right. Michael Keaton is in it, and I love Michael Keaton, aka original Batman. So I really enjoyed Homecoming. I thought it was a really fun entry into the Spider-Man franchise.
Interesting. I think I echo a lot of those thoughts. I thought it was a very enjoyable film. However, I grew up on those Sam Raimi films, and I love those movies. And I'll say this: as much as I love those Sam Raimi films, Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man, hands down. He's great. He brings so much charisma and youthful presence to the role. And yes, Spider-Man should be a kid, and Tom Holland nails it. And he's so watchable.
Yeah.
I also really like how the movie that just fits into the whole MCU. I love how Tony Stark is incorporated as a father-like figure. But I do have my issues with Homecoming. It's a very by the numbers movie, I feel like, where the Sam Raimi films had such style and direction, and just from crazy cinematography and music, and just really ahead of its time stuff in it that basically kickstarted, I think, this new wave of comic book movies in the early 2000s. Whether the Spider-Man movie it just feels very just a bit generic. I thought the third act was especially weak, considering that Spider-Man kind of endangers half the city because of his own actions, and at the end of the movie, everyone's like, "Oh man, if it wasn't for you, Spider-Man, what would have happened?" So it's a bit weird, but Michael Keaton is amazing in that movie, playing this third Birdman character. But as a Spider-Man movie in itself, I thought that it was okay. It was enjoyable, but it didn't do anything really new or unique or made me too invested with what was going on. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. It had a great villain. But for me, those Sam Raimi films are the
standard.
They are the standard. They are hard to beat. They're a lot better than the Amazing Spider-Man movies, though, I'll tell you that.
Okay. All right.
Well, that's our thoughts on those movies. So, spoiler 3, what did you think of the new Spider-Man Far From Home?
So I should mention that Spider-Man Far From Home is the 7th live-action film into the Spider-Man franchise. The total runtime is 2 hours, 9 minutes, directed by John Watts, and starring Tom Holland, Samuel L. Jackson, Zendaya, and Jake Gyllenhaal. So my non-spoilery impressions are, I really liked it. I thought the special effects were great. I really liked the dilemma that Tom Holland found himself in. And I really feel like one of the themes throughout this film was legacy. To me, it seemed like it was all about legacy. Because we know that in the previous film, and you shouldn't be listening to this if you haven't watched Avengers Endgame. I'll just say that right now.
Well, it's okay. The trailer for the movie even said, hey, watch Endgame first.
Right. So, again, we're dealing with the fallout of Tony Stark's death. So, obviously, that is going to leave, a major void in terms of leadership for the Avengers and the world and technology and a whole bunch of different spheres. And you have Tom Holland, who, again, young kid, who's kind of started to figure out his powers, but has been put in this role of, in a way, by proxy, trying to fill Tony Stark's shoes. I really liked the acting. I really liked the storyline. I thought that was strong and solid. So I really liked that, most definitely. And tell me, what are your thoughts of the movie? How'd you like it?
Well, considering that the original Spider-Man 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is one of my least favorite movies of all time, it's, I think, only fitting that the second Spider-Man movie is just average. I mean, I enjoyed it. There were There was one scene specifically that I absolutely loved, but again, I thought the finale here really kind of let down the film. I thought like the film was like it started off slow, it was kind of build something up, and I liked the direction it was going. It did something really cool at the end of the second act, and then the finale I think is a bit weak. But it's hardly ever in the film that I ever felt bored. I think it's a much better paced film than Homecoming was. And again, Tom Holland is absolutely amazing. I think it's worth the price of admission just to see Tom Holland as Spider-Man. His interactions with his friends are fantastic. Especially, I think this is my favorite interpretation of Flash Gordon. There's some really funny jokes in here. It's a good time, but it's not. I wouldn't call it an amazing film. It's just a good film.
Okay, all right. So, can we move over to the spoilers now? Because I have so many questions for you.
So I'm guessing you would recommend people to see the movie then?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I give it a 7.5, lowest 7.5, highest 8 to go check out the film. I definitely recommend that you go see it. I think it's fun. You'll enjoy it. It's a perfect summer movie, and it's a great entry into the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I'll say this. Yeah, it is a perfect summer movie. Worth your time. I can't see really anyone regretting going to see this movie.
Totally agreed.
Okay, and with that, we're into spoiler territory.
Okay, Tom, I have a question for you. What do you mean you didn't think it was a great movie and the ending was weak? Okay, so you didn't think that it was awesome when he
just used a bunch of drones?
Yeah. So when he infiltrates that weather monster, right? And then you see this like the hive of drones, and then when he, just starts taking them down one by one, and then after he penetrates that and he is on that scaffolding with Jake Gyllenhaal's character, where Jake Gyllenhaal is like such a freaking punk and tries to basically fake him out one last time and make it seem like he's like bleeding out. You didn't think that was awesome?
Here's the thing. The reason why I thought that whole scene was kind of lost it for me was because of how great the hallucination scene is at the end of Act 2. When Spider-Man comes into the building and then Mysterio just goes fucking wild on him and tries to like mentally break Spider-Man. Like, he has this, like, he tries to fight Mysterio, but like everything's a hologram around him, so like he tries to web Mysterio and he just pulls the crane and almost kills himself. That whole scene was so cool and psychedelic.
That's absolutely awesome.
Exactly. So when it came to the finale, I was like, oh, what are they gonna do? Now he's got all these drones and stuff. Like I was imagining that the big fight sequence was going to be Mysterio was going to use like his crazy holographic insanity to do something bloody wild. And what does he do? Well, he just flies a bunch of drones around. That's the big fight. That's a big action sequence in this movie. Is he just fights a bunch of drones, and like the two psychedelic weird moments in the finale are so fast. There's one moment where like he tries to reach him down the hallway, and he makes the whole hallway just
like one CGI nightmare.
Yeah, but like it lasted for 2 seconds, and then you have that really cool fake out at the end where he tries one last time to shoot Spider-Man. But like during that whole fight sequence, you have like these scientists in the background decoding, saying like, we're working on our simulation, it's almost complete. And so I was like, oh, when that simulation hits, the finale is going to go wild. And that's what I was waiting for like the finale just to like inject some crazy hologram stuff. And that simulation that we see like loading doesn't get paid off until the end credits. It just really, I was like waiting for something to happen in the finale, and then it just kind of ended and went,
but it was so,
is that it?
Tom, it was so good. And remember,
No.
He can't go too big with the illusion because he already tried that with Spider-Man before, as you said, when he set him up in that building when he was with Nick Fury.
And he almost killed him!
But see, here's the thing. Like, he knew in order to sell it, he had to pare it down. Because obviously, he had to make it seem more realistic, which is why it was more pared down. You know, just him lying on the ground acting like he was
No, that
out.
last scene, that last scene with him bleeding out, great. But that comes right at the end of like the 20-minute finale where Spider-Man just is chased around by a bunch of drones.
I thought that
Like,
sequence
that's the finale.
was awesome.
It was the only part of the movie where I was bored.
Are you serious? Oh my.
Yeah, like drones, really? After
Yeah,
the
because-
crazy hallucination shit? We have drones?
Because it was awesome to see how he was going to handle taking out freaking like thousands of drones. You know, what was going to be his point of attack?
Yeah, but think about that. He would fight all those thousands of drones, but if the hallucinations were there, he couldn't see them. But that, I think, is even more terrifying, that, like, you see a glimpse of all of these drones, and then it goes all black and crazy and shit, and, like, death could come at any angle, and you don't know where it's from. But no, we just have Spider-Man flying around London with a bunch of drones.
Well, but going with that argument, I feel like they did do that in two pieces. One, they did that when, you know, he's, you know, totally kicking ass and you know, webbing out and taking them from the sky, and then when he infiltrates, you know, the weather monster, and then again they have that sequence where he goes, when it's Jake Gyllenhaal and Spider-Man's like final standoff in the scaffolding, and then he's trying to surprise Spider-Man by trying to mess with his mind again, doing another simulation. So, because I feel like they didn't. Because here's the thing, like, I liked what they did because I feel like in Hollywood they do this thing called going Hollywood. So what that means is they're like, oh, one explosive isn't good, so let's have 30 million. And, you know, it just takes you out of the story because it gets to be just too redundant. And that's why I like that they didn't make it too redundant, and they really held back on doing that way too many times.
I disagree. I think they went through Hollywood because instead of having really no they didn't. Instead of having a really creative finale where like it had some crazy visuals, like that visuals at the end of the second act, I thought was great. It was the first time I went, oh, I'm not just watching a Hollywood constructed Spider-Man movie made by executives. There's actually some really creative input here with some really interesting stuff. And the finale, it was just like, and now Spider-Man has the big finale where he fights a bunch of drones. It just felt so Hollywood instead of actually having that creative input where you have some crazy imagery.
But see, there's your crescendo action scene right there. I just feel like there were. I like the pacing.
But it wasn't a good action sequence. Like, if you look at Spider-Man 2, every action sequence in Spider-Man 2 is so well done and interesting and so well constructed. And in this, it's just Spider-Man fights a bunch of drones. There's nothing interesting in there. There's no artistry. It's just Spider-Man fighting drones.
Dude, there is complete artistry with the fact that, you know, not only do these drones like come and attack them, but they can shoot bullets, and then they can alter
they shoot bullets. How unique.
But meaning, so there's like a multiple thing. There's like a lot of stuff that's going on, right? So he's got drones attacking him, right? Messing with his, you know, his visual environment, his senses. Then he's got to worry about his friends that are locked in a vault that are about to be, you know, shot up. You know, then he's got to get to Mysterio, who's controlling all of it, and he's got to make sure that Happy has, you know, communicated to Nick Fury, hey, Mysterio is not really on our side. So I think it was amazing considering, you know, the multiple things that were at play. I think it was great. Okay,
hey, and I won't take that away from you. If you liked it, that's awesome. But I loved so much when the crazy stuff they were doing to Mysterio, like down to the fact, like, I love that his actual suit is literally one of those suits that they wear when they're making 3D.
The green screen
suit. I love that green suit because it's so fourth wall breaking without fourth wall breaking. Like the whole reveal of Mysterio when he's doing the holograms and showing it, I thought that was so cool, and I thought they were doing something really interesting there. Like, I love how you, like, the fact that he's a villain whose whole, like, the reason why he's so flamboyant is because the world is around him is flamboyant, and they're just trying to keep up, so that they made, like, this whole, I love that it pointed fun at comic book at comic books. Like, whilst having fun with comic books, it also knew that its source material is a bit silly, and so I really enjoyed the fact that the whole villain was basically reenacting a comic book villain, because that's the world that he lives in, and that's the only people who get, you know, paid attention. Down to the fact that he's literally wearing a, like, CGI suit.
I love how he even pokes fun at his own costume, and how, like, right before, while he's, you know, revealing his, you know, big plan, how there are they keep cutting to him and, you know, several members of his crew, you know, checking in to make sure, like, all the electronics are, you know, on, and, oh, you know, Edith is, you know, doing what Edith is supposed to be doing. And then the woman
is
that
the
goes,
cape clean for the queen?
Because I can't get these wrinkles out. He's like, look, you know it's important. Get those wrinkles out.
Yeah, I love that stuff where, like, it's
funny.
It's paying fun to the fact that it is a comic book movie, and again, it's being very self-reflexive and acknowledging that it is a movie and that it has special effects. Like I remember when I was seeing Mysterio flying around, I thought, oh, okay,
Ooh,
like
it.
the CGI does look a bit fake, but I'll enjoy it. But then I like it. I like when it reveals, oh, that suit is actually CGI in the film, because, like, a big problem Marvel has always had, despite amazing its effects can be, like, Thanos looks amazing, but anytime there's a human recorded face on a CGI body, it hardly ever looks good. Like when Hulk was in the Hulkbuster, or when Spider-Man is in his, like, space costume. In the beginning of the movie, when he's in that Spider-Man suit, I was looking at it going, yeah, the CGI is amazing, but it's still got a little bit to go. But then I love that it uses those limitations and says, no, like, the CGI in this movie is actually CGI, which I thought was really cool and clever. And that's why I'm so disappointed that it didn't play a larger part in the finale, because I was actually looking forward to them going full comic booky. Like, you have a story element that can create just the most bizarre shit, crazy stuff, and you don't use that in the finale. You just have, like, normal modern day drones fighting Spider-Man. I just thought, like, that it wasn't a bad finale. It wasn't unwatchable like Suicide Squad or anything. Ugh. It was just a waste of potential, I think. And that's when I was watching the movie, I was so looking forward to when the comic book crazy holograms are going to come out, and they never did. And you only have that little crazy hologram messing around bit right at the end of the action sequence. And I think that's what really disappointed. That's what took me out of the movie, and what made me feel a bit less inclined in the finale, because they were doing such a good job before then. I thought they had potential, and I didn't think they really used it to its full, until it's full.
Okay, alright. So, while we're on the topic of villains, can I give out a Dick Award? I think that, what was that guy that liked, MJ?
Oh, I can't remember his... Todd. Oh, I love Todd.
Like, if we could give out Dick Awards, he would win. Hands down. What a dick move. When that bastard follows him into that room with the woman and takes a picture. Who does that? That's a total dick move. I'm like, what an asshole.
Because he was just totally... Because I love that he said, hey, what are you doing? He said, hey, I know you like MJ, but I like her too, so all's fair in love and war.
And she's got to see this. What an asshole, though.
Back to that scene, though. I think that's another example, I think, of one of the things what I thought I didn't like about the movie was there's a few kind of forced scenes. Like, the scene, where she literally where Spider-Man meets an agent, and then the agent says, here is your costume. Change into it now, in front of me. Like, there's no self-awareness there that...
She had to make sure it fit.
This 40-year-old... Okay, think about this. This 40-year-old woman is looking at this, like, 16 or 18-year-old...
Wait, where'd you get this? She's 40.
Change in front of him. Oh, she looked about 40, didn't she?
No, she looked younger than that.
Well, okay, she's above 20. I'll say
yes.
that. She's
20 plus.
She's a woman. He's a child, and she's just watching him change in front of her. Like that seems just like, and there's no self-awareness at all.
Because I think she's a professional. Because look, she's an agent with Nick Fury. They've been there, done that, seen everything. So I don't think she's thinking, oh, I must avert my eyes. She's thinking, hey,
it's a common human courtesy to like when people are changing, you don't
Yeah,
look.
but she's thinking, all hands on deck. We've got a serious, like, global event-ending monster. You need to check to make sure that this costume works. We have very limited time. I think that's where her mind was at.
I think it just came across as a bit forced, just like in the scene where, like, Jake Gyllenhaal goes, oh, great, now let me tell you, all my partners, what our plan is.
But see,
like,
that was just having fun and being, like, the ridiculous comic book character where they neatly lay out all of their plans. I think that was kind of like another, poking fun at archetypes.
See, like, for me, but again, like, it wasn't in the clever, self-reflective way that it was doing where he was literally playing an archetype. This is when the veil is supposed to be dropped, and he's just, like, talking to everyone, and it does, I think, the thing which I hate when films do, when a character basically says, well, as you all know, and then proceeds to tell everyone what all the characters know. It's just kind of a very lazy storytelling tool in order to tell the audience something that these characters already know, and it just came off as very exposition heavy. Like, it's another example of, like, again, it's not like the worst thing in Sliced Bread, but it is a moment where I'm like, oh, he's literally just telling his plan.
But Tom, we didn't know. That's why I get what you're saying, but in this case, I think that it was warranted because we didn't know, all the characters' backgrounds, and it was fun to see that basically they were disgruntled employees. I thought that was cool. I thought that not that was a justification, but I thought that did explain, where they were coming from, their motivation, why they were going to such elaborate steps. I actually liked that. I thought it was funny.
No, I like the idea of it. I just don't like how it was delivered.
So
it was
you don't
very
like the
clunkily delivered.
You don't like the execution.
It doesn't really happen organically. I think that's my main thing. And also, as much as I do really enjoy Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, and I love the whole self-reflective element of it, the fact that they're the only reason why these little people can ever be taken notice, because they're the people in the background of literal movies that we've seen,
right.
which I like.
I totally like that.
But yeah, and because it's you don't notice those people even because they're not the superheroes.
So this is their time.
Yeah, and Jake Gyllenhaal is what I love is I thought he was a bit subdued at first, like when he's playing his nice guy element. I thought, okay, cool, but as soon as he goes villain, Jake Gyllenhaal just comes alive.
Oh,
you can tell he's just
right?
relishing the role. And again, because like they don't do anything with the crazy fourth wall breaking stuff that they do in the finale. That's my biggest thing. They just they didn't use the great creative plot that they had created, which because I was enjoying the film, it was fine, but it was that moment in the second act where I was like, oh, you've hooked me. I can't wait to see what's going on, and they never delivered with that.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? How about this? I'll tell you a scene that I thought was kind of disappointing. Mm-hmm. Where you would think that there would be like a huge build up to, MJ's character calling out Peter, going, "Hey, I know you're Spider-Man." I just thought that was pretty anticlimactic, and I was a little disappointed. I was like, oh, they could have made this bigger, or made it more right. They just could have gone bigger. I just didn't like it. I felt that was one of the only scenes that fell flat for me. Totally.
This is interesting because I actually really like that scene. I like
what?
that.
Tom, do you like to be contrary to me? I swear.
I don't like to. I try not to be, but okay.
Okay, let's hear your thoughts.
I like that because it was one of those things that was actually going against the Hollywood grain. Like, you have this built-up scene, Peter Parker's going to explain, I've fallen in love with you. And then MJ just goes, oh, you're Spider-Man. And I really like it because, I think it makes sense for this interpretation of the character. One of those moments where I was like, oh, okay, this is actually interesting. And I like that it kind of sweeps you off your feet a bit more. It's not a big up moment. It's just
flat.
oh.
It's so flat, Tom.
When it happened, it actually made that scene much more interesting. I was like, okay, Peter Parker's going to do his whole confession now, and this is going to happen. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, now she knows. For me, it's what made the scene less repetitive and boring. And yeah, I think it makes sense for a character, and I think like it puts you in the shoes of Tom Holland, of Peter Parker, sorry, where he's like he didn't expect that was going to happen, and like as much as I love the Sam Raimi films, that whole reveal of who Spider-Man is, it's been done before, and it was done not that well, but it was done in The Amazing Spider-Man. So I thought like it was smart of them to just go, you know what? She's a smart person. She's been around Peter Parker long enough to go, yeah, no, I get it. So I enjoyed that.
Oh, it just fell flat, Tom. I just feel like reveals are, because superheroes go through such feats in order to hide their identity. You know, they make up a whole persona. They have like a bat cave or the cave of solitude. Like they even have like their own hideout so they can keep their private lives and their, you know, superhero lives separate. So when you're revealing that to someone or someone's outing you, I just feel like you should give it the proper gravitas that it deserves. So that's why I say that part, that was like one of the only scenes that fell flat. But, okay. But I see where you're coming from. So I will echo what you said earlier and say I did not like the execution of that scene.
That's fair. That's interesting though. There's things we like about it, things we don't. Right. We have opinions. Well then, what was your feeling then on the big reveal in the mid-credit scene?
I thought Mysterio was such a bitch. I'm like, how could you do that? He freaking outs him. So everybody now knows that he's Peter Parker, and then the asshole put up a picture. I was like, you son of a bitch. Oh, but it was brilliant though. I really liked it. I thought it was totally clever.
Oh, so you like that the direction that they're going in, hopefully in the future for that, because you were saying you really like the whole fact that characters have like a secret identity.
Oh, of course. And then this kid is like so young, so like that could destroy his life. You know what I mean? I thought that was. I was like, man, I can't wait for the next film. I really hope they have a next film. Because, you know, right then and there, they've already set you up. And I really like how I did not see that coming whatsoever. Because at one point, I like how they do a fake out. So he goes, oh, and his name is, and then it cuts out, and you think, oh, thank God. And then the screen comes back up, and it goes, Peter Parker, and then shows an image.
Yeah, that was good.
Right? I thought, man, Jake Gyllenhaal, that's a dick move.
I think why I felt like this is like it felt very by the numbers, and the cool stuff that they do introduce in this movie doesn't really pay off, at least to an extent that satisfied me. But I'm really interested in the angle they're going to do for the next movie, because that's not a movie, like we've never seen a movie where the world knows who Spider-Man is, let alone thinking that he's a murderer. So that's going to be, I'm really interested in that angle, and I thought that was a perfect angle to take it. And if that wasn't sweet enough, you got J.K. Simmons re-portraying his role as J. Jonah Jameson from the original Sam Raimi films, which is just like the best perfect casting you could probably get. I was always kind of like worried about how they would recast him in these new films, and the fact they're actually bringing back J.K. Simmons just delights me so much. And I really hope he's, you know, a slightly bigger role. He's actually going to be in the next movie. That's what I really hope for.
And what did you think about literally the ending, the end post credit scene where you find out that Nick Fury is somewhere in space, and that the two people walking around as Nick Fury and his right-hand man are, in fact, Scree. I like that. I was like, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
I know people who are really into the comics have a really big bone for the Skrulls. And, like, I remember when I went to see Captain Marvel, I saw it with a guy who read a bunch of comics. It was like, oh, this is going to play into the whole next phase of Marvel. And I went, okay. And I don't know, it has some interesting implications to me, like, it doesn't profoundly change the movie. It's not like a Shyamalan twist, which completely recontextualizes the entire movie. The fact that the main bad guy from Rogue One was actually Nick Fury the whole time is there, but I don't know, like, I thought, well, oh, that's kind of crazy that it wasn't even Nick Fury the entire time. But I'm interested to see how they're gonna play with that going forward. But it didn't knock the socks off of me like the first post credit scene did. That was fucking amazing.
Yeah, it was. Though but I do like the part where, because if you listen carefully, he goes, when he's in the car and his glamour, if you will, is down, and he's trying to contact the real Nick Fury, and he's like, we really need you to come back. There's been a situation, and everybody keeps asking me about the Avengers. I don't know what to say, so we really need you to come back. I feel like that one little sentence, I feel like, is very interesting, because he's right. What is the state of the Avengers? What's going on? Who's stepping up? Is anybody stepping up? I thought that was really interesting. So I wonder how they're going to address the Avengers situation in the next film going forward. I thought that was really neat.
Do we know what the next MCU film is? Like, I know that Black Panther 2 is confirmed and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is confirmed.
You know what?
Or do you know what's...
I don't know. I know those two movies, as you said. Anything else, I do not know. I believe that they are going to do one more Spider-Man out with Tom Holland. Outside of that...
I mean, you would think, after this ending.
Right. After that, they are going to do a Black Widow movie.
Oh, that's right.
And outside of that, I don't...
It's going to have to be a prequel, right?
That's what I said. But they won't confirm nor deny that, so we'll have to see.
Oh, I hope it's not a sequel.
Yeah, that'd be a little awkward.
So for the future of the MCU, I like that they're taking it slow from now on. They had the big, cinematic conclusion, which was amazing and very satisfying. Mm-hmm. So I think they're doing smart of just kind of laying the groundwork, just, I think, working on smaller movies for now, and maybe, like, building up the things in the future. So I'm interested in what Marvel are going to do now, but I think they're playing it smart of just, like, they're being a bit quiet about the future of it just yet.
Right.
So how do you feel Far From Home was as an epilogue? Because this is technically the last film in the third wave of Marvel movies.
I really liked it. I thought it was a nice tie-in. You do feel like this is a standalone film, but it does tie back to Endgame. And I feel like it's a nice check-in, like a nice world check-in. And when I say that, I mean, it's nice I really liked what they did in terms of making the audience understand where the world was at in terms of, Tony Stark's death. How everybody was feeling super uncertain because nobody understood, like, where the Avengers were. And then you were also dealing with the consequences of what they've deemed the blip, which was when, the Avengers were able to bring everybody back. So I like that. I thought it was a really nice tie-in. It's a standalone.
I like that they called it the blip instead of the snap.
Yeah. So I really like that, seeing real life consequences. Oh, and like how one of the early scenes is where you're at this fundraiser that Aunt May and Spider-Man are hosting to help misplaced people of the blip. So I thought, okay, so that's cool to see, like, real world consequences. Like, we're not skating over that. So I like that.
Yeah, I personally would have loved to see even more of that. Because that's one of the things I thought were going to be really interesting about this movie was how it was going to deal with all the stuff that happened in Endgame. But I felt it was touched on in just kind of light, interesting ways. Like, it gave you, like, it acknowledged that it happened. It tried to incorporate it a bit, but I personally would have loved to see more of that stuff because I thought that was a really interesting part of the movie. Alright, okay, so thoughts on Far From Home in general?
So I liked it. Thought it was a really fun movie. Not so much buddy in this one because everybody's booed up except for poor Peter Parker. I really liked Jake Gyllenhaal's character. I thought he was an awesome villain. You could really tell he had fun with it. I liked the special effects. I thought they did a really good job with that. Tom. I liked how it was they didn't take themselves too seriously, like a true Marvel movie, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I like the message of the movie, and I really cannot wait for the next Spider-Man movie to see exactly where all this goes.
Yeah, no, I'll say this. Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a fun time. There's a lot of funny little interactions. I think if you liked Homecoming, you'll also like this movie. For me, I think it carries over a lot of the same problems that Homecoming had for me, but it was still enjoyable. I don't think the villain is as compelling, but that said, Jake Gyllenhaal is still just is always a good presence. So you're always gonna have fun with that. I'm just a bit disappointed that it didn't continue. It didn't do this as much as it did with the crazy, self-reflective Mysterio stuff that it was beginning to do. But it's not a terrible film. It's a fine film. And like I said, Spider-Man 2, amazing. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, terrible. This one, it's average. It's it all averages out. And if you really like Spider-Man and video games, the recent Spider-Man PS4 game is probably one of my favorite Spider-Man properties out there. I think it combines all the stuff I liked about Spider-Man as a kid, whilst being its own thing, and you feel like Spider-Man. So that's also a great thing. Spider-Man's just had a really good year recently with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the video game and whatnot. And him being in Endgame. It's been a really good time for Spider-Man.
Oh, I totally agree. And even, like, animated, it's been a really great time for Spider-Man. So, this is definitely the year of the spider, I would say.
Yeah. Even though this one is, for me, is that... Okay, here's the thing. What's your favorite Spider-Man movie?
My favorite...
Or even property. What's your favorite Spider-Man piece of media?
So, I haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse yet.
What?
I know, because I'm saving it. So I wanted to watch.
Oh, it's so good.
Right? I'm so excited to watch it. Cause I'm like that kid that I like to eat all my gross vegetables first before having my dessert. So
So that's why you watched this film beforehand, I see.
So then I'm gonna watch Into the Spider-Verse. But my favorite Spider-Man movie or property would be, what would it be? You know what? Okay. I gotta say that I did really love the Spider-Man, the old school Spider-Man series. And I mean old school as in from the 70s. It was before my time, so when I came around, I was watching the reruns. But I really liked it because it was just fun and campy. And I liked and I'm saying this with air bunny quotation marks, but the special effects of Spider-Man crawling up buildings when, you can really just tell that it looks like he's just walking on a normal building and that the camera is like literally turned on its side. But I really appreciated the heart. It's just fun and campy, and it didn't take itself too seriously. So I'd probably say that would be one of my favorites, and in conjunction with the 90s cartoon.
I was gonna say, yeah, like my favorite is like the 90s cartoon.
Right? It was just
fun. With the terrible intro. We go, Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
I totally agree.
Oh, it's one of those things where like you watch as a kid and you love it, and then you go back and you're like, oof, this doesn't quite hold up as I thought it might. Like everyone's like really buff and stuff. It's a weird show. I love it, but it's a weird show.
So that's interesting that we both agree that one of our favorite properties is the 90s cartoon. I thought it was fun too. I really liked it.
Yeah. Despite watching it now, though, there are some wrinkles there.
Just a bit.
But it's great.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay, well, with that then, we should probably end the podcast.
Yeah, and I should say, please check out our next podcast where we will be going over the series. What was it called again, Tom? Help me out here.
Stranger Things.
So check us out for our next podcast where we will be going over our impressions of the series Stranger Things Season 3.
Till then.
Thanks, guys.